Well, that was pretty exciting. I think all of those organizations are doing incredible work, showing the importance of networks of support in different ways. And by now, it should be really clear not only what possibility development is, but how we can support it in different ways. I mean, we've got researchers here, we've got NGOs, practitioners here, we have entrepreneurs here. So there's so many opportunities for us to use this model and apply it in so many different situations. So very exciting stuff. Thank you to all three of you, all three of you groups. Awesome stuff. Okay, I want to now hand it over to our funding strategies duo. We have Kimberlyn Butler and Liza Herzog. We're going to talk about funding strategies. By the way, we would have a break now, but we're kind of over time, and I think it's important that we kind of stick to the schedule here as much as we can. So, Kimberlyn and Liza, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Very much appreciate being here, and I sort of see myself as this node in a sense, because I kind of identified with the halls who said, we're not this, but we are, and I felt like I reflected on my past 20 years. I am primarily researcher, educator, policymaker. I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm also leading a nonprofit. I'm also teach future education entrepreneurs. I teach future teachers. So I sort of have endless hats from which to share my perspective on what a network can both be and do for what I would say your own, and let's just start with kind of defining what your own thing is. So I'd like for us to reflect. I feel like part of what it means to be innovative, to be entrepreneurial, is to kind of live out 5, what I would call essential skills: experimentation, play, empathy, creativity, and reflection, that we don't really get enough of. And so we come to summits, we come to conferences, and we get such cross-hatching of amazing information. And I kind of wanted to situate us as to where are we. I had the opportunity to sit in on almost every session. And so I'm trying to take stock of where you all are and figure out what would be the best kind of at the, real-time usable data for you in what could be various spots in your life cycle as an organization, a project, a program, a partnership. So I want you to put in the chat, if you would. I was going to throw a poll up, and I thought no one wants a poll at this moment. We're 90% through the sitting and staring at a screen. But if you could, what are your top funding questions or concerns? If you are thinking about funding at all, and I use that term very expansively: resources, in-kind, investment. You can kind of reframe it the way you feel like you think about, you either in your own terminology, which is often different across what we know to be, I've spent 20 years in K-12 public schools. I've spent a ton of time in higher ed. I've spent time in companies. I was a lawyer for many years. So I feel like all of that language kind of gets jumbled into, okay, we're all looking for resources. So the way the conference is organized, we have organizing concepts around possibility, theory and research, amazing projects. There was some group networking, global cases. We had a panel about research methods and program evaluation. I teach program evaluation. I think is absolutely key to think about your theory of change back into, from your outcomes, what activities are core to your mission, and then what resources you will need to carry out those activities. To me, that's just modeling your own kind of resourcing. So now we're here at funding strategies and moving into building global networks. Do I see anyone in the chat? Maybe not, but I know that it's late. So think about what your top funding questions and concerns would be. I also want you to think about collection of individual projects versus a network, and how you characterize your own work. What I heard throughout the day, these 2 days, research to practice, policy, program, project, initiative, venture. So to me, why is that important? How you describe and characterize your own work, and how do you characterize the network at this moment? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. To yourself, how do you describe? So for me, if you think about, I think in terms of logic modeling, that's the way I kind of lay out both program planning or organizational planning, implementation, evaluation, to get to what are my core intended outcomes for whom. And I could show you dozens of logic models that I've worked through, both with students, with colleagues. I teach at Drexel in the School of Entrepreneurship. We're the first undergraduate school of entrepreneurship in the US. That what we've done inside of the School of Entrepreneurship, which is in itself a startup, we've logic modeled our way to how do we do recruitment? How do we do, core processes or core products that we think as a higher ed institution, which to me are need to be moving in far different directions. And that's my own prediction is a little bit aligned with Scott Galloway's prediction, which is if you don't have the flywheel, the resources will not be there. We have not innovated as an institution, as a sector. We have delivered similar product while the cost has just absolutely skyrocketed. And you could say that network that students are in, if the pipeline is to get to college, which many mention it is not. Multiple pathways are, to me, the biggest leverage point for possibility theory, possibility development, far different than choice. Benefits of a network. And if you think about collective impact, and kind of how that's been almost commercialized, and I've been in many networks that I feel kind of have imbued, the benefits of which are how I activate those benefits as an organization. So there may be backbone support, right, from, say, it's Penn GSE. Is there a development of a common agenda and goals? Are there shared metrics? So as you think about GPN, what are the reinforcing activities? It might be what will happen and is happening on the platform that are tailored to your own needs as individual projects, programs, organizations, individuals that serve various stakeholders in all over the world. Might be a resource library. So think about the reinforcing activities. Are those resources that you're extracting from the network help build the business, help recruitment for your, what is highest need for you, and what is the value proposition of a network for your own work? So is it the continuous in-network and or external facing communication? Is it moments like these when you're coming together, learning about each other's work, and then kind of individually taking that where you'd like as pairs, as peers, as groups? I would then, if you think about, okay, so what's most important to you when you're thinking about funding, if you think about funding? Is it the level of engagement of, I want to check the chat. Is it the level of engagement, for instance, venture philanthropy, high touch, right? Is it the support term, single multi-year grant, if you're thinking about grants or a contract, or how is it tailored to exactly what you feel like you need? Is it capacity building? Meaning, do you need core function support, or are you really a collection of programs and very lean and do not, which is rare. And I would say if you're a mid to mature organization, you might, you kind of look for program funding. if you're looking for capacity building or general ops, it's almost non-existent. It's far more common now than it used to be, which is hopeful. But it's still very hard to get. Non-financial in-kind support, performance-based measurement. How is your performance? How and what matters? You know, for venture capital, I mean, that's very, very much kind of, the outcomes are hugely performance-based, and those metrics might be co-determined by an investor. Is that okay with you? You know, so those are kinds of things that you got to kind of think about. Yeah, so I'm reading through the chat how to reach out to the right people to show our researcher opportunities. That's important too. What Flavio mentioned about the value of a network. Alejandra, how to best approach funders to present projects, and if we should partner with well, my mantra, and this is after many, 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 many years in the world of nonprofits, you cannot not partner, in my view. To me, flexibility, adaptability, and the openness to talk with anyone, mission aligned, and once you get to really know the work of an organization, I am going to also just kind of close with what's called a NIFWIF grant. This is a National Wildlife and Fish Federation grant that we went into. I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Land Health Institute. We do ecological restoration, we do environmental education, and we do vacant land revitalization in Philadelphia. We have a program, our educational program is called Profess, which is the program for future environmental scientists and stewards. We serve in a given summer, and we do partner with Penn GSE with their urban teacher apprenticeship program, future teachers, future science teachers that are actually engaging with us in at the source environmental outdoor education. 40 to 60 students across watersheds, only open to public schools, totally free, with a stipend. We have no capacity to do this, but we do this. So we enter into grants like NIFWIF with Audubon and others, and the Clean Air Council, and Cobb's Creek Neighbors, and the Water Center at Penn, and others who have stakes in the community, and for whom, without those partnerships, zero chance where we would be able to sustain programs like that. The water department, you can get a government contract, but those are typically short-sighted, or in at least, they're term limited. They kind of close out, and it's a hard thing to renew. Partnerships really do open those doors to other opportunities. Just yesterday, we were approached, and then I want to do very light on the slides and sort of heavy on the conversation. We were approached by the Enterprise Center with whom we work. It's a economic development enterprise in West Philadelphia that you might know of, that works with small businesses and entrepreneurs mostly in both Centennial and the Mount Vernon areas with the local CDCs, these community development corporations. We, as a college and as Land Health, were approached for our expertise in hydroponics with students as a teaching nursery. We have a native plant nursery, but that would only be known by virtue of, I would say, 6 front burner conversations on a loop at all times. And I feel like to have those and that to me is networking, writ small, writ large, and that as you kind of get ensconced in your various spheres, one of which is the Global Possibility Network, those opportunities for funding just open up. And so I'm trying to kind of do a systems level approach. I kept thinking, like, how do what's my entry point? But I want to stay up here, and then I am very happy at any point to drill down with anyone that would like to go kind of in a vertical, any kind of direction that I'm skimming over now. A little bit about like life cycle realities and matching your current, where you are now to type of support. So, and feel free to just jump in the chat if you have any comments, because I know that many of you are not emerging and are either early or mid to mature program, and have done lots of partnering, have done a good deal of fundraising. And so what used to be a planning grant, so if you're an emerging or an untested, are you an exciting idea and you have a set of research questions, or you have a program design that you may or may not have outlined in a logic model, which I actually have one teed up to show you. I don't know if anyone would want to see that. I think we probably will skip over it, but that modeling of where do I want to be, what are my intended results, back to what are the activities and what kinds of program design that I've like laid out for my own self, would just go ahead. One of my sons just came in. I'm very sorry. So would then speak to, all right, I need to find a funder whose mission and vision is aligned with these early stage, untested, which are typically more risk tolerant investors. Pilot study, planning grant, you name it, takes on all kinds of terminology. But to me, I am such a fan and ambassador of the logic model because it maps all of what you're imagining your program, how you feel like it will run. And I see I have a typo here in program model, from which you'll build that business model or program model, and then like model out all of those needs in a pretty logical way. So when Alejandra said, how do I present this? It could be a pitch, in my undergraduate student, they pitch. And so we have a kind of a business canvas model. They're doing their customer segment. They're doing their financial model. They're doing the ask. It's sort of a pro forma, like much more so like the block of presentations we just learned from, and much less so like a research project that you might see at ARA or somewhere where it's researchers sort of talking with and through researchers. And the language is different. And when you hear things like mutuality, you think like, I don't know if I know what that means. And then backing into it and saying, okay, and then how do I see this? How do I operationalize this as a funder? How do I activate it? That is to me, the magic of presenting the work. And so many of you have presented the work in such visual splendor. I really appreciate kind of understand, getting someone to kind of nod in unison and say, wow, I know what I'm supporting. And it's fascinating. And I want to know more, you want them to leave knowing more. So early 3 years in, small scale, low capacity, unsustainable. If you're finding yourself in any of those settings, proof of concept, capacity building, hard to find, implementation grants, they're also called. You could do, and federal government is known to have sort of these phased, those are very hard. We're going for an Office of Community Development grant right now with the Enterprise Center and with the zoo. They're 90 some pages and ridiculous, and they need to just innovate their way out of these RFPs, which is happening in small. I see the funding community from a high level, lot more peer-to-peer peer review for, like, the Kellogg Foundation has this really cool process that we just went through. There's another called Mosaic that is a newer organization that also to me felt very different from like, here's our panel of experts and you're going to get this feedback and then you'll never hear from us again. That is less the model than it used to be. And you get you can, and I would definitely suggest that you tap into funders for insights as to why each decision was made.
Liza, can I just jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
I want to do a quick time check because I know that we're cutting into people's work schedules. So Kimberlyn, how long can you stay? I just want to make sure that we have enough time to get both of you in.
I have a hard stop at 11:05. That's the absolute latest. Thank you. Good stuff. Please keep going, if you want to wrap up. It's okay.
I'll do that. I'll wrap now, but I want to
had questions. That would be nice if you guys are open to that questions. Go ahead.
Awesome. No, thank you. I want to acknowledge advantages, individual and structural. So when we talk about talent management strategy, when we talk about strong leadership, when we talk about what Scott Galloway calls the flywheel, think about the individual, the assumptions we're all bringing to a program, project, organization, to the solution. And I forever step back, and I call it kind of living the I versus living the we. And if you think about a school district and your own student, and you sort of think, to me, it's always the district. You're part of a greater good. If there is possibility development for all students, that is not possibility development for my student. I mean, I have students who go to public special admission school. They don't even know if they want to go to college. But the point is, they have those structures, those networks, just like Jared and Sylvia showed. That network does not pop out of nowhere. I mean, that is advantages over advantages over advantages. So I want just to make sure that when we sit back and think, well, reaching schools and reaching students with products for whom those schools are seeing students at a third grade reading level in the ninth grade, it is very difficult for some of the uptake of some of the, when if you're kind of getting to core possibility development, I just want to make that note. And then very, very quickly, my last kind of parting thoughts on the benefits of an effective network: flexibility to do your core work, the potential for outsourcing or bundling your core functions so that a network can actually serve as a functional place for those functions that you may not be able to carry out. Recognizing opportunities, which I did mention earlier, that is just come at you in so many forms if they're and constant scanning. And then I have a lot of network experience. I just want you to see, these are some of the networks I've taken part of in the last just maybe 10 years. And here are others to build my own teams of opportunity. And that has often led to funding and other resources. So I will stop there. Kimberlyn, please.